Steve, we're live for your first ever one.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm Steve.
I'm doing all right, actually. There's been a bit of a journey to get where we are at the moment, but it's exciting.
Good. Well, we're waiting for people to join the live as the notifications go out there. We've obviously got a little bit of a Christmas spirit flavour going on for this one. I've actually not been on these chats for I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks actually. So
a while, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a while since I jumped on. So obviously the first bit to point out from the graphic is we've got a super sub come in for Lee Glome, who unfortunately is unwell and couldn't make it. So we've got Mr. Ryan Bloomfield with, he showed me off camera, one of the brightest Christmas jumpers.
Shall I put it on?
Let's have a look.
Oh, okay. I'm not having the whole time. I'm going to have it for my business meeting tomorrow. So otherwise, it'll run out of battery.
Save the batteries, mate.
Yeah.
I like that. I do like that.
Good, isn't it? Very Christmassy, very festive.
And Chris, have you been playing the piano in the background there recently, or is that digitally enhanced?
It's not digitally enhanced. This is my living room.
Open AI strikes again.
I'll be lucky if I can play the recorder, to be fair. My daughter plays it better than I could.
So someone on the group page has logged in. It's either Callie or Mike, I would have thought. Evening, gents. Say hello. Steve, nice jumpers. So as we mentioned, Steve's first one. Steve's going to be launching in the new year. So if anyone's not seen Steve yet, this is who he is. He's down in Havant and Hayling Islands, in and around that kind of Portsmouth South Coast area. Very experienced, over 20 years worth of industry experience, and going to tear it up on the South Coast. So, Steve, you looking forward to the launch in January? Ready to rumble?
Yeah, very much so. As I said to you earlier, this is a chance for me to do what I've always dreamed of doing, in starting my own agency with the support of very experienced people and social media behind me, which is an untapped resource that agents have started to use, but they're not using it to its full capability yet. And we all know that people get phone locked. How many times you walk in somewhere and everyone's got their head down and they're looking at their phones? Yeah. So social media is obviously the way forward.
Absolutely. Social media. And Chris, for you, sort of touching on that, obviously you've enhanced your business over the time that it's been flowing with various tech. But one of the things that most people normally reach out is that personal service. So what conversations are you having with your clients in the sort of Camberley, Frimley area at the moment?
Very, very honest ones. I think a lot of people are, I think any agent at the moment saying, "Oh, we're still busy," and it's so busy and we're crazy, is lying. It is quieter for all the reasons we already know: mortgage rates, things that are going on in the world, cost of living, Christmas as well. And I think it's managing expectations. Because at the moment, it does start to dip a little bit as we head into the week, onto the run up to Christmas. But it's still busy. Fair few viewings today, viewings tomorrow. We've got 3 take-ons booked in for next week, so we're busy. In terms of what's being said to clients, you've got to assess it on each individual property itself. No 2 properties are the same, no 2 situations are the same, and you've simply got to assess the situation at the time. If one property is not getting the kind of uplift that it should be, well, okay, fine. What do we do to attack that? What do we do to remedy it? Do we look at a different marketing tact? Is the price an issue? What is it? But identify it, discuss it, and run with it. So it's just very, very frank, honest conversations.
Good, honest chats, and good to know that actually, I think most of the agents that I've been speaking to, quite a lot of listings coming onto the market between now and the end of the year, which is
there is.
Always positives. I think a few people have waited just to see what's going on, and now they're rocking and rolling. Ryan, coming to you, because obviously the big news today is that the base rate has increased, I think, for the 9th time in a row, and it's up to 3.5%. The worst kept secret, probably on record, because we all knew it was going to be raised by 0.5%. I know you had a great live chat with your recommended mortgage broker, someone that you worked with for many years, Adam. What was his take on it, and what's your take on it?
Thanks. As we said, 9th consecutive increase, and I think from Adam, like we've had other issues before where base rates have gone up, and I asked quite a key question: is like, are mortgage rates going to go up off the back of it? And his very simple answer was, no, they're not. They're not going to go up any further than where they are. In fact, they're probably going to be coming down. When we look at the obviously back in the mini budget at the start of October, obviously you had that huge hike in mortgage rates, and people align that with the base rate increases. It's not the same. The Bank of England base rate doesn't really play a part in the mortgage. It's the swap rates that are actually making a difference in terms of what people are paying on their interest rate for their mortgage. So he's confident things are going to stay the same. How it does affect people, a lot of brokers, and he was advising people the same, a lot of people are on tracker rate mortgages, where obviously if you're on a tracker rate at the moment, as of January, your mortgage will go up by 0.5%. Your mortgage rate will go up by 0.5%. But other than that, people in fixed terms obviously aren't affected, of course. People looking to buy properties to remortgage early next year, you're still going to be looking between 4.5% and 5.5%. But he was pretty confident, certainly from the lenders he's been speaking to, that there's going to be a number of decreases in rates. He's confident that at some point throughout next year, they'll be below 4% quite comfortably. So he seemed really positive, to be fair. So the good news is, yeah, it's gone up, obviously, to try and curb inflation, but it's not going to have a drastic impact on our market in terms of mortgage rates specifically.
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing.
Yeah, it seems that the lenders, the banks, have just accounted for the likelihood that the base rate at some point again in the next 6 months is probably going to be at 4%. It's probably going to go up another 0.5%. But like you say, the swap rates are kind of dictating what's going on. And yeah, all the brokers that I talk to are anticipating kind of low 4s, and then maybe even some sub 4s within the next sort of 9-10 months, something like that. I guess what's quite interesting on the tracker front, most trackers that I've seen, the good rates that people have been taking the last couple of weeks seem to be about 3.2, 3.4%. So even a 0.5% increase is still only pushing them up to kind of 3.7, 3.8. So it's not the end of the world in comparison to probably the best rates that are on the market that are more like 4.5%. What sort of buyers have you got registering at the moment, Chris, over in Camberley? What sort of buyers have you got registering with you that are active?
I've had quite a few, particularly last fortnight. I've had a decent level of first-time buyers coming back in. Obviously, it's helped very much with a lot of first-time buyers, with banker mum and dad and stuff like that, which is how a lot of first-time buyers are doing it these days. But I'd say probably above everything else, in terms of percentages of types of buyer, I'd say probably about 40% of them ish have been first-time buyers, and then the next ones, a lot of people coming out of rented, who have bide their time. Rental prices have shot up, and that hasn't really helped things. And people that are looking to re-sign up and sign up for another year of rental, the prices are being hiked, and actually it's still actually better value for them to buy. So yeah, that's the two most popular types of buyers I'm seeing at the moment.
Interesting. And down on the south coast, then, Steve, it was, correct me if I'm wrong because I don't know the market, but I would imagine somewhere like Hayling Island, for example, it's probably more cash than mortgage. I would have thought. Definitely people that live there, I would have thought.
Yeah, there's a heavy demographics of cash rather than mortgage. There's quite a mature population, shall we call them, that live on the island. It's a perfect retirement area. You've got the coast and so many things to do on the island, and then short distances away east and west, you've got Chichester and Portsmouth. So you've got all the shopping facilities, but you're out the way on the coast.
Yeah, nice part of the world, actually, isn't it? Who's been?
It's beautiful.
I've been over the bridge, and
Nice.
yeah, it's a nice part of the world. So I would imagine your market next year that you're excited to kind of be part of is largely unaffected by a lot of what's gone on here. If anything, prices will naturally drop if they're dropping in other areas, but the actual buyers that are potentially looking to go down there and live a different type of lifestyle potentially will be unaffected. And then you've got the first-time buyers as well.
Yeah, I mean, the location of it's on the A3, A27 junction. And I've seen in the past a lot of the buyers coming down to the Havant, Hayling, Waterlooville areas are from London. Selling up in London, releasing the equity, coming down. You've got a train link straight in. Takes less than an hour. So you can sit on the M4 for an hour, or around the M25, or you can jump on the train, be in London, carry on with your work, but have the coastal life.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think it's a nice part of the world. One other piece of data that's thrown out there, I'll go to you on this, Ryan, is the Rightmove report. It's reporting that 2.3% drop in prices last month, this is. And I think it's just really important to highlight the fact that we're not talking about data that's actually completed. We're talking about asking prices with Rightmove, because the media really did jump on that. And sometimes you see the media make the big error, which frustrates the life out of me. They're taking a 1 month snapshot, timed it by 12 to give you an annual forecast, which does look a little bit horrific if you were to kind of talk in excess of a 25% drop over the next 12 months. But let's be honest, this is a fallout of asking prices from the mini budget, we think, really, don't we, Ryan? I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's look over the last 3 months. We've had the mini budget, the disastrous mini budget that obviously caused chaos across the economy, which obviously has massively affected house prices. We've had the rise in mortgage rates; they have gone up. They love your chair, Chris, don't they?
Yeah, it's a nice chair, that.
Very comfy.
Yeah. So obviously we've seen mortgage rates gone up. It's had an effect. It naturally gets quiet at the end of the year. I think we forget the last 2 years we've had with obviously the pandemic. The market, let's be honest, hasn't dropped at all. December's just been another normal month for estate agents over the last 2 years. But traditionally, you look back at the market from 2012 through to 2019. Normally, like I remember telling my staff at some point, so if you don't sell a house before start of November, it's going to get tougher. So you need to start thinking about your January and February exchanges. That's the reality. So I just think we're back to a normal market. Yeah, okay, prices fluctuate 2% here, 2% there. The other thing to take into account, that's normally a UK figure. So in our small bubble markets, whether it's Berkshire, Surrey, Hampshire, the marketplace is very different from town to town. So you take it with a pinch of salt, but I think combination of mortgage rates increases has affected things. The natural slowdown of the end of the year market. We've also had a World Cup thrown in, which is obviously I'm speaking to the broker Adam. He said, any summer there's a football tournament, he always sees his business drop off as well. So that's played a part in it. I think back to next year, January, February, March. I think we're going to be back to normal, and I don't necessarily think prices are going to go up, but I genuinely believe they're not going to drastically fall off the edge of a cliff as the media would have us believe.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see, because depending on where you report, I think, was it Zoopla or Rightmove? One of the portals reported a 2% forecasting drop next year, which is quite optimistic when you look at some of the doom and gloom kind of scaremongering going on of drastic changes. But I think it feels to me like the summer months, as we've mentioned before, got so high and at such a premium that we've now seen that corrected. And I think next year we'll probably see less transactions, less people moving. But to put into context, you normally see about 100,000 transactions a month in the UK. So somewhere between 1 million and 1.5 people every year complete on a property. And when you take that into context to how many the population is, and obviously the fact that the population continues to grow, it's such a minor percentage. And if there is less on the market and less people looking to move, then it will stabilize the pricing a little bit as well, even if we are in a recession or negative. This is the key thing for me, Chris, that I'd love you to sort of elaborate on, is whenever I talk to someone that says, well, prices are dropping, prices have dropped 10%, say, this year, in the last 4 or 5 months in comparison to where they were. Let's say prices have dropped 10% on asking prices. So it's good news for first-time buyers. But I always bite back with, buyers don't buy based on the price of the house. They buy based on the affordability of the monthly payments, whether it works or not. So actually, it's not a good time for a first-time buyer in comparison to maybe what it was 9 months ago when it was a hell of a lot cheaper. So the people that wish the market to drop sometimes maybe a little bit naive in how they calculate what affordability and pricing actually looks like, I think.
Yeah, I think you've got to be careful what you wish for with statements like that, because I hear it all the time too, and it's relative to everyone, whatever happens with the market, up, down. But the bottom line is, in terms of that comment there, is that it is down to affordability. I mean, if they say, you're fine, here you go, Chris, you can get a mortgage for £3 million and it's going to cost you 25 pence a month. It's great, isn't it? But, obviously I appreciate that's obviously going it quite extreme there. But, whether or not it's the goalpost being moved with the mortgage rates that has the biggest effects on that. And I think, I think it is a bit of naivety, and no disrespect to anyone who thinks like that, but it's all relative. And if you're already on a certain rung of the ladder, wherever it might be, top, bottom, middle, whatever, it's going to affect you either way, positive or negative. But then I think the people that are within, in the middle rungs of the ladder there, it's completely relative in that respect, because if it goes, whatever you're going to move up to, if yours has come down, well, obviously so is what you're going to buy, by probably a similar percentage. And okay, the values obviously very much differ, but that's my kind of response to that. But we hear it all the time, and it's as I keep saying, I just deal with the market of today. I'll worry about tomorrow.
Yeah, which is the right way to look at it, I guess. Matt's asked about mortgage rates. Probably a bit early to see whether there's any drastic change from the base rate change today. You mentioned, Ryan, when you were talking to Adam from the partnership mortgages, that probably we're expecting to just see them keep creeping down at the same sort of rate that we've seen for the last couple of weeks, going over the next couple of months. And that seems to be the route that they're heading, is closer towards the low 4.
Yeah, I mean, Adam had... he made a really interesting point. He's been speaking to a lot of sort of the business development managers at the big lenders that he works with, and his representative from Nationwide basically said that next year their goal is to always be in the top 3 product deals across the rates, across the market. So basically, if someone undercuts them and they fall out third, then they're going to cut their rates to get it in. The banks have made, and they've made a lot of money over the last couple of years in terms of mortgages. It's been flat out for them, as it has been for estate agents. But next year, they know it's going to be a little bit tougher. So they're going to be more creative and probably a little bit more flexible on their rates. Mm-hmm. So we've seen these highlight rates come out for a week when they've slashed prices by 0.5%. That's going to be happening on a weekly basis. And it's not a case of race to the bottom, but more these big lenders, Nationwide being named one of them, will be actively trying to get people to use mortgages through them. And the best way to do that, to lure people in, is great products, including fees, money back on exchange, on completion, various things. So it's exciting. I think mortgage rates will drop down, but even if they're between 3.5% and 4% continuously, that's not the big scheme of things. It's not the end of the world for a lot of people. It's not the cheap rates we've had for the last 2 years, but it's still not the end of the world.
Yeah. Totally agree. It's a follow-on from, we spoke probably 7 or 8 weeks ago, and we had Uncle Dave on the show, and Dave from AFP and Wokingham was basically saying exactly that they've done what they needed to do this year. The banks have made their money, but next year they've got new targets, new plans, new aspirations, and new goals, and that will see them get competitive. And it feels like we're warming up for that. And if the banks want to get competitive and they want to lend and they want to create more business for their own individual targets, then the people that benefit are the buyers. And if the buyers are benefiting from rates, then the sellers are benefiting from the offers. So, that's positive news in itself, and hopefully answers Matt's question. Steve, we're talking rates there. What's the highest interest rate you've seen?
Up in the 6s. I mean, when I first bought down in Portsmouth in 2014, I'd gone from Swindon to Portsmouth. As a first-time buyer, I was paying 5.5% with a 5% deposit. So, only a couple of years, prices increased a little bit, remortgaged, better loan to value, better rate. It's a game that you play in the mortgage market. You take what you can, which is affordable, and later down the line, you rejiggle that finance to make it even more affordable and to put extra money back in your pocket.
Yeah.
Or overpay your mortgage and bring the debt down.
It sort of takes me back to a statement that I heard someone say the other day. It might have even been this week, to be fair. But they were talking about sitting on the fence and, when should we go to market? When should we make the move? When should we do the upsize, the downsize, the change of location? When should we go from a tenant into a first-time buyer? When should we start our search and our move? And I really like this answer to one of the questions that the chat was asked, because he said it's better to be in the market than trying to time the market. And I just thought that was a really sensible way of looking at it, because the sort of example we used was in any investment form, it's normally better to be in the market than trying to time the market. And whether you're talking stocks, shares, or whether you're talking property, it's actually better to strategize and just get yourself in the market, make the plans work for you, and make it affordable as well. One thing that is very obvious at the moment, Chris, and especially if you are looking at Facebook this morning, I noticed a lot of people turned into the weatherman or the weather lady this morning. And I saw all over my social media feeds people highlighting the temperature, which I didn't need to know, because
Was it cold?
it was very cold. Yeah. And I was fully aware of it. Yes.
What about snow? We have any snow?
I've got a weather app actually on my phone, amazing invention from Apple, and you can just wake up and check straight away.
Wow.
But tips for selling in winter months, because it's winter. I've got my elf hat on today. It's keeping my head warm because, as people have informed me on Facebook, it was -7 this morning. So what tips should we give sellers? Because it is due to warm up a little bit, but it's cold. It's probably going to get wet after it's become freezing. It's darker earlier. And that means when people are viewing in the evenings, they're viewing in the dark. It's cold. It's a bit miserable sometimes out there. We've had some unbelievable selling months this month with the weather, and still sometimes the sun shines out. But what tips should you give to people that are thinking of selling in winter months, Chris?
Okay, for starters, and it might sound like an obvious one, turn the lights on, especially if it's a bit dark. Secondly, sweep your front pathway. Get rid of anything that's on there, jet wash it, whatever. A nice, fresh new doormat. If obviously people do take shoes off 95% of the time, make sure that you've obviously got somewhere clean for them to put their shoes inside. Otherwise, it'd be lovely and cold when they put their shoes on afterwards. That's the first thing I would do.
Good tips. Ryan, any advances on that for winter month selling?
Not to be the Scrooge of the group, but if you are selling, so between Christmas and New Year, like I'm one for taking the Christmas decks down on the 26th if I could, but Lauren won't let me. But generally for January, don't go into the start of January with Christmas decorations still up. And if you have been on the market, or you are on the market, and the estate agent's taking photos whilst your trees are up, whilst your lights are out the front, make sure they come back and get new photos immediately as soon as you take those decorations down. Because if it does sit on the market for 4, 6, 8 weeks, you don't want to be sat at the end of February with Christmas decorations up. It's just highlighting the fact you've been on the stone. So get those decks down as quickly as humanly possible once the festivities are over.
Yeah, totally agree. We've got another compliment coming in from one of the avocado partners on your background there, Chris. Really taken by storm. No comments on the hat. And I mean, I've got ears.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I should have left the lights on permanently, shouldn't I? I would have got comments on the jumper, but there we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking the show from us. What about yourself, Steve? What other tips would you give for people looking to sell in the winter? January is going to be a cold month, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been said yet, and I know the prices of gas and electric have shot through the roof. But make it homely. Put the heating on. Tidy up from Christmas. Now, I've got kids and grandkids, and I know how many toys they get. And it's in March, April, May time that you start having that sort out. Do it earlier. If the kids are getting new gifts in and new toys, have somewhere to store the plethora of toys that they've already got. Because if it looks crowded, it's deemed as small, regardless of its size.
And it helps with the marketing as well. If you are putting your house live and you have a good clear out, we talk about the 10% rule, but with the videography side of things, it does make a big difference if it's clutter free. The other thing, the only last thing that I would bring to all of that fantastic list is if you are selling in these sort of more seasonal months that we are at the moment, it is sometimes hard to spot a house number when you're going out to view. And even if you're in a cul-de-sac, this is where the importance of a for sale board does actually help, because the last thing you want is a frustration from the buyer trying to find the house and they can't find the house, and it's a rat run road or whatever it may be, or it's on a main road and they're just going up and down and it's difficult in the dark. So this is where a for sale board does make a big difference. And actually, the best for sale boards that you can get, they're these pink ones. The poster's in the middle.
Seen loads of those.
Yeah, that
Everywhere
sort of
now.
avocado sign on the top works really well. When it just sticks out the top, very noticeable. So they're the ones that I would personally advise, and that's just honest, genuine sort of tips from me there.
I mean, the harder you make the buyer's journey before they even walk through the door, the less likely they are to buy.
Absolutely. So let's have a little forecast. I'm going to write it down just before we wrap up for this evening. There is no such thing as the average house, but we talk about the average house prices all the time. So let's not talk nationwide. Let's talk south of roughly where we operate, south of Buckinghamshire for the time being. Although we will be moving a little bit further up than that in the new year. But for the time being, let's talk from High Wycombe, where Mark Childs is, down, and take that average just outside of London. So, down to where Steve is, Surrey, Berkshire, North Hampshire, South Hampshire, that sort of area. What do we think prices will do next year for houses and then for leaseholds? Chris, I'll come to you first. Sorry, mate.
That's all right. I thought about this before we went live because I knew you'd ask it. I think we could be looking at a 5% difference between now and the middle of next year.
Okay.
I think for leaseholds, I think that might be hit a little bit harder. I think because of a lot of issues that there are with ground rents and stuff at the moment, which are becoming more of a problem, that could get hit a bit harder. So maybe between 5 and 10. Hopefully, the softer of the two. But yeah, I think that's realistic and very honest in terms of what I think can happen.
Could see potentially somewhere around a 5% difference. I'm guessing downwards rather than upwards.
I think so at the moment, yeah.
Okay. Ryan, what about yourself?
The number that jumped straight to in my head was 5%, but obviously Chris said that, so I'm not going to say that. I reckon about 4.8, 4.9% drop.
5.1.
But generally, I don't. If there is, I think it will be between 3 and 5%. I can't see prices dropping that much more. Certainly, whilst there's still a lack of properties on the market. That's still a reality. And whilst yes, things are taking longer, I don't think it's going to drop that much more. If you take the average price at 450 grand, for example, if you're talking 5%, that's 25 grand off already. They're not going to be dropping 50 grand, are they? In my opinion. That's the way I look at it. So yeah, I'd say up to 5%, but put me down for 3 because Chris said 5.
Okay, right. Steve, what about yourself?
I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to say 4%.
Chris is going to say, Steve's going to say 4. Yeah.
Yeah, 4%. I think it's very individual to the property. If a property is deemed competitive by the buyers, you'll get a lot of interest. You'll get a lot of offers. You can then pick and choose the best buyer from the offers that you receive. If you put it at too much, no one's going to come through your front door. So it's getting that right balance where you get a number of people through your door to have the choice of buyer to put you in the strongest position going forward, but not give it away at the same time. So, yeah.
Sounds like you went on the fence a little bit there.
I did a little bit.
What's the number?
I think it's going to be about 4%, 5%.
4%.
It's going to be in that sort of region. I don't see it being much more than that. And in some areas, the more desirable locations, I can't see it dropping. I think it's going to stay quite stable throughout the year.
Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah.
What's your thoughts, Ian?
My thoughts are, I think sometimes what people underestimate is with the negativity that people underestimate how much extra money was put into the economy throughout COVID and throughout furlough. And I think people have that money still, and people have increased their savings. And that's why inflation is what inflation is. I mean, the economic definition of inflation is there is too much money. that is what they teach in economics. There is too much money. It's as simple as that. So I don't think it's the case that everyone. Someone's ringing for their screen back, Chris. I think for their
Probably,
lounge.
yeah. It's my daughter. Sorry.
You want to take it? Should we ask her? Why don't we ask her what the number is? I mean, that
could be quite funny, actually. Yeah, if she rings back, I'll do it again.
Great live TV. So I think there's a lot of money in the economy, and I do feel for the people that are really, really struggling at the moment with, like Steve says, kind of gas and electric and stuff. But she's persistent.
She is very persistent.
We need to make an estate agent out of that one.
God forbid.
I do think the middle market will still move, and that's the key thing for me. Is I think the middle market will move. I think it's time that Chris speaks to his daughter. We are half an hour.
Darling. I'm currently live on a stream.
I was just going to show you the things that I back from Lapland.
Give me a few minutes, sweetie. I'll buzz you back. All right.
I just got back from Lapland, did she say? Yeah. Okay. Love that. Absolutely love. She thought you were talking to the real elf from Lapland. So yeah, that's my kind of slightly interrupted take. There's money in the economy. The people that can't afford to move weren't going to be moving anyway. The people that can afford to move, most of them will still move. And the shrewd investors out there will look at the fact that there's been no opportunities for bargains in the last 2.5 years. And there are some now. So that's a normal market. And I think a normal market gives normal activity. So yeah, potentially up to an 8% drop in the south of England. And I think in the north of England, or maybe London, you might see a little bit more. But in the south of England, in the home counties, up to an 8% drop at its absolute maximum. And it wouldn't surprise me if it actually sits somewhere around level or -3%, -4%, something like that. So, yeah. I don't know what the date is next week, but one thing I do know is that I don't think we're going to be live. Let's have a look. It's the 22nd. So I don't know if we're going to be live next week, but I need to double check on the rota. We won't be live on the 29th, but we will be back on the 5th. So maybe we'll squeeze another one in next week. But if anyone's got questions for any of us or any of the Avocado Group about the market, about selling, about when's the right time to put your house on the market, questions about the base rate mortgages, winter tips, Chris's living room, Steve's new venture, or Ryan's flashing jumper, or my elf hat, you are welcome to drop us a DM, and we will see you when we next see you, everyone.
Wicked.
Cheers, gents.
See you later.
Cheers, guys.